Oh,
All right, everyone, welcome back to another Bible study session. This is part 7 on our Habakkuk Bible study. As you guys have known, we've been doing this for like what, 2 weeks now? 3 weeks?
okay. Sorry, I forgot one other thing. The most important part.
Oh, how long do you think we've been? How long do we think we've been doing this for? Like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that?
Longer than that, because I can really only get it done like twice a week.
Oh yeah. Okay, so longer than that. I don't know because I'm not good at math. But if you guys don't know, Mara, she's been leading the study for a little bit, and I'm hoping excuse me, I'm hoping it does raise questions for people when they study stuff like this, so you can have a better understanding. So, without further ado, let's get on. So, it's gonna be solo mode for Marv. So, with you, I'm leaving it to you now.
Okay. I was trying to figure out where to start, but I guess I'll just start like I always do, which is reading the first part that Miss Dana uh, typed up in the book. Um, and then if you want to have it ready, the first passage that we're going to read is Second Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 5. Whenever I let you know.
All right, give me 1 second. Second Timothy, chapter what?
3 verses 1 through 5.
3 verses 1 through 5.
Just so you can have it pulled up.
Okay.
And I will let folks know that I'm having problems Englishing today. So if I blah 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 a lot, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I do that too. So please bear with her as well because we're we're all trying to get stuff straightened out. We're trying to. Ain't easy, but eh, it's not easy being an adult. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Okay.
Second Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 5, right?
Yes, but I'll let you know whenever to read it.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So Jesus promised that as long as we have feet on the sin encrusted soil, we would have trouble. The wrestling and embracing you're doing during your painful times in your life right now are practice for the next difficult trial you face. But there's a bigger picture that we must keep in view. Like Habakkuk, we have received notice. God, in His Word, guarantees that Christ will indeed return. Just as Habakkuk had knowledge of events awaited on appointed time, so do we. It's possible you and I will be here on this earth for some dark and harrowing last days, when humankind's vices of conceit, brutality, and unholiness, and the list will go on, will intensify. God's people must be mentally, emotionally, and spiritually prepared for these terrible times. We also may not be here for that cataclysmic event. No one knows when it will happen but God Himself. Regardless, we must be faithful to pass on to future generations the training to live righteously by faith through evil times, so they are prepared to face great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again. If ever there will be questions on the hearts and minds of believers, it will be then. If we do not pass on the baton of truth, they'll likely believe the facts that will have the final say. I assure you, they will not. So you can go ahead and read that passage that I wanted you to read.
Okay. So, Second Timothy chapter 3, sorry, verses 1 through 5, and says this. So, I'm reading out of the Amplified version so people can have a better understanding. But understand this, that in the last days will come sudden perilous times of great stress and trouble, hard to deal with and hard to bear. For people will be lovers of self and utterly self centered, lovers of money, and aroused by an inrated, something like that, greedy desire for wealth. And we see that today as well. Proud and arrogant and contemptuous boasters. They will be abusive, blasphemous, scoffing, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, and profane. They will be without natural human affection, callous and inhumane, relentless, admitting of no truce or appresented. They will be slanderers, false accusers, troublemakers, intemperate, and loose in morals and conduct, uncontrolled, and fierce haters of good. Again, you see that there too. They will be treacherous, betrayers, rash, and inflated with self conceit. They will be lovers of sensual pleasures and vain amusements more than and rather than lovers of God. For although they hold a form of pity, true religion, they deny and reject and are strangers to the power of it. Their conduct belies the genuineness of their profession. Avoid all such people, turn away from them. And that's out of the Amplified version.
Yeah, so I wanted you to read that because where she says that, we might be here for the last days, quote unquote, where there's, brutality, unholiness, conceit, etc., etc. Um, and then when I read it, I was like, well, that kind of sounds like today's day and age.
It does. And only also with this, because I don't think I knew about the hurricane thing until you told me they tried to. I'm not trying to go off track here, so pardon me. They try to say that's linked up to some kind of prophecy as well. I did find the verse, but I don't know it right now. I'll pull it up later. But they tried to link it up with that because the massive amount of destruction that was done by the hurricane.
I actually thought about that, and I thought about it even like that further because there's already another hurricane heading towards Florida immediately after that. Like, and I know that, like, it's October and it's, yes, Halloween season, hurricane season, but like at the same time, there's never really been an instance where there's been this massive hurricane and then immediately after another massive hurricane heading towards the same spot. Like, they usually have a couple of weeks to recover, not just if a week. So I actually thought about that as well. But and that and like the flooding that's happening here. Luckily, I don't think this part of Knoxville saw any of that. The flood watch isn't over for another 3 hours, but we haven't seen anything from that specific flood. Like I said, a couple cities an hour away from us did, but I
Mm-hmm.
personally did not. So I don't know. I have been thinking about it like that though. Just with everything going on in the world, I have thought about that. So moving on to the next big passage, you don't have to read all of it because it's a lot, but you can skim through it. Hebrews 9, chapter 9, verses 11 through 28 is talking about the covenants of Jesus Christ and how they did covenants back in the day. So, but there are questions about the different verses, so you're going to want to maybe turn there.
Okay, so Hebrews 9. What verse am I beginning at again?
11 through 28. And I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to make you read it because it's like a whole page and a half
Okay.
of stuff. But first question is, what is Christ called in Hebrews 9:15? And I have that verse circled and starred, and then the verse above it, I have that underlined and double underlined in some spots. Like, my Bible is all kinds of marked up just from this study. But so in verse 15, I don't know if you want to read your translation so it's easier for people or
Yeah,
what.
I'll go ahead. It's not a problem.
Just 15.
Okay. And also, whoever has a different translation, you can read out of that too. But I'm reading from the Amplified version. Supposedly it makes it a little bit easier, but okay. So, Hebrews 9:15 says, Christ the Messiah is therefore the negotiator and mediator of an entirely new agreement, testament, covenant, so that those who are called and offer it may receive the fulfillment of the promised everlasting inheritance. Since a death has taken place, which rescues and delivers and redeems them from the transgressions committed under the old first agreement. If you're wondering what the old first agreement is, that's referring to the old covenant that was made, I believe, with Abraham during that time period, if I'm not mistaken. That was right after the flood of Noah.
My translation also says under the First Testament. But so I would say the answer to the question, what is Christ called? In that verse, he's called a mediator. And there's another word in your translation. I can't remember what they said.
For this one, they said a negotiator and mediator.
Ah, yes, negotiator. I would agree with that. Cup, stay still. Um, so a mediator, basically the meaning for a mediator is that one that facilitates communication between two parties who are in conflict. That's basically the definition of a mediator. So, in if you have Brandon, if you have skimmed at all the passage while we have been talking and stuff, um, the next question was, what does Christ use as his mediation tool? And from my understanding in the passage, is his own blood, because we already went over um, the thing with Abram, the promise he made with Abram. He passed through those dead animals and passed through their blood. So we've already gone over how covenants worked back then.
Well, I'm still skimming through it, but if I could read verse 12, if that's okay
Yeah,
for
that's
this
fine.
one. I looked at this because you were on top of the blood, and I would agree with that because it says, He went once for all into Holy of Holies of heaven, not by virtue of the blood of goats and calves, by which to make a reconciliation between God and man, but his own blood, having found and secured a complete redemption and everlasting release for us.
That's funny that you mentioned verse 12 because I actually had part of it underlined. Uh, so my translation says, neither by the blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood, he entered in once into the holy place, having obtained for eternal redemption for us. And the part that I had underlined was by his own blood and redemption for us. The eternal redemption for us is the part that I had underlined. So it's funny that you mentioned verse 12. Let's see. Um, so the next question is why does it require a covenant sacrifice? And she said, see verses 12, 14, and 12. Sorry, wait. See verses 12 through 14 and 22. And again, going back to verse 12, and then through 13 and 14. 14 is where I have most of my underlining done. But and I'll just go based off of 14. So my translation says, how much more shall the blood of Christ, who through the eternal Spirit uh, offered himself without spot to God, purge your conscience from the dead, works to serve works to serve the living God. So why, whatever they're talking about in this verse, why does it require a covenant sacrifice? Because everything was done through blood. And that's again going back to the promise that Abram and God made together. Like I said, God walked through the blood of those dead animals and made a promise to Abram. So, and then I also want to go over the fact that after verse 15, it says, For where a testament is, there must also of necessity be the death of the testator. And I had that one, underlined and circled. Must also of necessity be the death of a testator. Meaning, I'm assuming where it means that something has to die for a promise to happen, which I think that's how I'm understanding it. But also, if that is true, that's also, again, prophesying the death of the Lamb of God. Something has to pass away or die for the promise to be fulfilled. So, the way I put those together, that was kind of cool. Um, and then, what two physical appearances of Christ do verses 26 and 28 foretell? 26, I also have something underlined, and then 28. But if Brandon, if you have anything else on that you want to say?
I don't have any comment right now, but if you want me to read those verses, I can.
Yeah, I just heard you clear your throat, and I was like, oh shit, sorry, my bad.
I don't know why I'm coughing. I'm not sick, so I don't know why it's doing that. But
No, also the reason I said that is because anytime that you ever have something to say, you always clear your throat first.
I just do it to make sure I can talk properly. But verse 26 says, "For then would he often have had to suffer over and over again." Again, I'm using the Amplified version, so it's going to do that. "Since the foundation of the world. But as it now is, he has once for all, at the consumption and close of the ages, appeared to put away and abolish sin by his sacrifice of himself. And just as it is appointed for all men once to die, and after that the certain judgment, even so it is that Christ, having been offered to take upon himself and bear as a burden the sins of many once and once for all, will appear a second time, not to carry any burden of sin, nor to deal with sin, but to bring to full salvation to those who are eagerly, consistently, and patiently waiting for and expecting him."
So, the first appearance that I think, it wasn't like a physical appearance. I think it was just like a um metaphorical talking about the future kind of thing. Because in my translation, I have underlined, he appeared to put away sin by the sacrifice of himself. So he appeared as a sacrifice the first time, and then the second time, the KJV says he appears the second time without sin unto salvation. So he appeared the second time without sin. And I think that's talking about like the second coming. But also, while you were reading that, I was reading a little bit ahead in chapter 10, verse 3, where it says, "But in those sacrifices there is a remembrance again made of sins every year." So I thought that was interesting, especially because like my translation has it like not in cursive, but it has it like, so it means that like the sacrifices there is a remembrance again made of sins every year. It has that clearly important. It's not in bold, but it is. I forget what it's called, but yeah. Anything to say before I move on?
No comment, you're doing just fine. Carry on.
Okay. So let's see. So on either side of us are the two appearances or comings of Christ, um, where he first meditates on our covenant and then seals it. So the first thing is Christ is our Savior. The Son of God was born as a human, to remain sinless, that he might be able to mediate. a promise on our behalf with his life. And it just started like raining. Sorry, I got distracted. So all of the prophecies about the appearance of Christ as our Savior have come true, and it's been estimated that the chances of that much accuracy is one and a whole lot, like 10 to the 17th power. So, and she said something that I resonate with. I'm fairly allergic to math, but I am able to understand that the probability of these prophecies coming true was impossible, unless it was God's sovereignty at work. So then the second appearance is Christ our coming King. Jesus died, rose from the grave, went into heaven, and then sat with God, and one day he will return to seal our promise and redeem all of us. So we're going to go back to talking about Daniel. Um, so we're going to go to Daniel chapter 10. I had to look and see. And it is really raining outside. Got to find it.
Okay, I got Daniel 10.
Okay. Go ahead and read verse 14 while I'm still looking for it.
All right. Verse 14. It says, "Now I have come to make you understand what is to befall your people in the latter times, later days, sorry. For the vision is for many days yet to come."
So, for just from that verse, what do we know that Daniel saw?
From that, he was talking about basically not just talking about the prophecy of the Messiah coming to earth and basically saving us from basically our own stupidity, but also for other things to come as well. Because in other verses later on, not in Daniel, but in other ones, it says, "As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the coming days of the Son of Man." I'm not sure if that's relevant to the conversation, but it might be. I don't know.
I'm just like, we at least know that he saw some sort of vision.
Yeah.
Um, and then let's see. Uh, read verses 7 through 8.
7 through 8, same
Mm-hmm.
chapter.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And I, Daniel, alone saw the vision of this heavenly being. For the men who were with me did not see the vision, but a great trembling fell upon them, so that they fled to hide themselves. So I was left alone, and I saw this great vision, and no strength was left in me, for my fresh appearance was turned to parlor or something like that. I grew weak and faint with fright.
So he was obviously kind of shocked and scared and weak almost just from seeing that vision. Um, and then Daniel 12, chapter 12, verse 4 tells us what he was supposed to do with that vision.
Isaiah 12:4.
Daniel 12:4.
Oh, Daniel 12:4. Okay. Daniel 12, verse 4. Okay. But you, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Then many shall run to and fro and search anxiously through the book, and knowledge of God's purpose as revealed by his prophets shall be increased and become great.
So he was told to shut up the words and seal the book. So basically, don't talk about it, is what I'm assuming. Um, and then we're going to go to Revelations 5, verses 1 through 10. And again, I'm not going to make you read the whole thing if you don't want to. But, let's see. In verse 2, it says, "And I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, 'Who is worthy to open the book and loose the seals thereof?'" So the angel is asking, who's worthy to open the book? And no one was able to. So, let's see, who did she say it was? John. John was the one that wrote this one. He was upset because no one was found worthy enough to open and read the book. Not even open it. He was upset because nobody was even able to open it and look at it. And in that verse 5 also, it is describing the one who's able to do that as the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, and also described him as a lamb that looked like he had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which were the 7 spirits that God sent to the earth. So I think it's kind of funny, and kind of not funny, but like ironic that the tribe of Judah was named in verse 5, which is the same fallen land that Habakkuk was upset about. So that honors the faithfulness of Habakkuk and Daniel, because Daniel was given that vision to be able to, seal the book and put it away. So Jesus is both a lion and a lamb, but when he wins this final battle that they're talking about, for us, he'll do it as the lamb. And when Jesus enters into that final battle, he'll still have the scars from all of it. He's our lamb, the one who died for us, and he can open the scroll, the book, or whatever you want to call it. And it was his life that let him be a spotless covenant slash promise sacrifice for us on Calvary. That is what qualifies him to open the book and break the seals. So we don't really know why the opening of the book or scroll or whatever you want to call it matters, but it does. Um, whatever it is, there is only one person that can open it, and only Jesus is worthy to open it and see what's inside. When he comes forward and removes the 7 seals, there is a celebration of all sorts, which is said in verses 9 and 10 that I um, underlined as well. It was a kind of song that they were singing, and we don't know what it sounded like, but "Thou art worthy to take the book and to open the seals thereof, for thou wast slain and hast redeemed us to God by the blood of out of every kindred and tongue and people and nation, and hast made us unto our God kings and priests, and we shall reign on the earth." Um, so it's possible that this is the moment of all moments that matters the most. Um, and whatever it is, it does definitely matter. And she wanted us to listen to a song. I listened to a little bit of it. I'm not going to play it because it's very long and it kind of just repeats itself. But if anybody's interested, she says, listen to "Is He Worthy" by Andrew Peterson. And it is very pretty, but it was very long and repetitive. So, going on to the second chapter that I did, unless Brandon has anything to say.
No, no comment right now.
Okay. So the next part is how to hear God through the hurt. So she starts off as uh, saying, "Why is it so hard to hear God when I'm hurting?" So, first of all, listening for most of us is difficult. Most of us will, zone out, start thinking about other things, um, or just be like, this is not what I wanted to hear, so I'm going to move on. So, once we, you know, all do our personal Bible studies, because it's hard to sit and listen for God just sitting there and like being like, oh, I'm not hearing anything. Like, I'm just going to move on with my life. When you study, sitting in the silence and just kind of repeating back everything that you just kind of studied over, um, God might bring some other facts or whatever to your head. So if you want to hear God's voice through the hurt, you must climb into your watchtower and watch for answers. And I thought this was also ironic as well. And we'll go back over that in a little bit too. But where is it? Habakkuk 2 verse 1 says, "I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and will watch to see what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved." So literally, that if you want to hear God's voice through the hurt, you must climb into your watchtower and watch for answers is from Habakkuk 2, the first verse. Four ways to watch for God is watching hopefully, obediently, faithfully, and prospectively, and just remembering to watch for his answers. So, and Romans 8:37 says, "No, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us." That's a way to learn to watch. God promises that we will be conquerors in all these things. What things? Losing a spouse, an arm, a friend, your confidence, failing in your marriage, your love life, college, or career? If God made himself a man to live in our world, this world with these things, quote unquote, and then died to save us from them, is he really going to let them destroy us? God shows up, and the moment that we truly need him, his peace calms us for the I mean, just in any way that you're thinking, like his peace is so calming, and the comfort of God's Spirit dulls us to the problems in our physical life, but then heightens our perception to the things of the spiritual world. And hearing from God is the only thing capable of giving peace beyond what we can ask or imagine. And I think that I'm kind of like paraphrasing some things that she says in this book as well, but also like I just thought of something else. My main go-to panic attack song is called Symphony. I think it's by Dylan Chase, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. But literally, the part that I always go to, even if I wake up and I'm starting to have panic attacks, like or something, like I'll wake up and just have an anxiety attack immediately. I don't know why. It just happens. But the one part of the song my brain immediately goes to and sometimes helps me go back to sleep is says, "Even in the madness, there is peace." So I just thought that was kind of cool to throw that out there. Um, so going to Habakkuk 2, chapter 1. So when it says, "I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and watch to see what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I'm reproved," I think he is looking to see what God said in chapter 1, verse 5, which is, "I will work a work in your days, which ye shall not believe, though it be told you." So I think that he has finally been like, okay, God's still here. He's going to work something amazing I don't know what it is, but he's going to work something amazing. So he just says, I'm just going to sit here and I'm just going to wait. Um, and he literally says he's going to go sit in the tower. So, what do you think that those kinds of structures in Jerusalem would have been used for back in the day?
For the towers?
Because they were, war torn ancient worlds. Like, well, I mean, I kind of picture something like Lord of the Rings, where they lit that thing when there was enemies coming in.
A watchtower. That's basically what he says. Basically, like a watchtower. They would basically use it to look out.
Yeah, but like when she asked that question, I literally that's what I thought of was one of those things from Lord of the Rings where they lit the thing so that all the rest of the lands could see that hey, we're going to war.
Hmm.
That's what I thought.
Other other than that, I'm not sure what else they use them for. For me, it's like, hey, we're right here. Don't bump into us, basically.
Yeah. So she gives what her description of it. Habakkuk is talking like a little soldier in this verse. Both watchpost and tower would have been built into a fort or the defense wall of the city. The visual picture the prophet paints of a soldier on duty, Habakkuk is expressing that he is in his army of faith and he will not leave his post. He will stand at attention in silence, waiting in silence for God's voice. And somebody actually said that when we pray, we as a collective people, normally we pray at God rather than talking with Him. For many of us, our prayers are like nasty little boys who ring front doorbells and run away before anyone answers. And she did have a very good point. Do not play ding dong ditch with the God of the universe.
Yes, please do not do that.
Every single word the Lord has to say is more important than the wisest sentence you'll ever speak. To hear Him, you'll need to say less and listen more, and that requires stillness and silence. So now we're jumping to Psalms 46. 46? Not 106. Verse 10.
Which one was that again? I'm sorry.
Psalm 46, verse 10.
Psalm 46, verse 10. First. Really? Psalm 46, right? Verse 10.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm getting distracted by someone to be a speed demon over here.
You're good.
Let be all. Look. Let be still, and know, recognize, and understand that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth.
So he instructs us to be still and know that he is God. The context of that verse is to be still and wait. And then she's like, uh, read the rest of the passage, which is 11 verses long. I'm not gonna make you do that, but in that whole chapter, at some point you see a reference to God's big picture view of one single problem that is at the root of our pain and suffering. And I think that is I think his big picture is in verse 7, which says, "The Lord of hosts is with us, and the God of Jacob is our refuge." And then again says the same thing in verse 11. So I think that's his main picture is like, hey, um, I'm with you, and I'm also your refuge because he said the same thing twice. That's how you know something's important. in the Bible is if something is said multiple times, either in different ways or in the same way, that's how you know it's important. So God's command to be still is not for people with the, simple, neat little lives and simple schedules, that's ready to be followed every single day the same way. It's not for that. It's for those of us or those who feel like we're in a battle or at war with our lives. Um, Somebody that's, constantly going, 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 can't stop, can't stop, can't stop. Oh, I don't have time for the Bible. I don't have time for this and that. That is for the command to be still is for people like that, or people that, you know, like me and my husband who just have constantly stuff going on all the time. Something's always happening. Our lives just can't be simple, you know. So apparently, the word no, like KNOW, in Psalms 46:10, there's another word that's used in some other translations called, it's pronounced yada. It is used sometimes to communicate intimacy between a husband and wife, and here it is reminding us that we can have that kind of emotional connection with the God of the universe. Whether we're in terrible times or hard weeks or bad hair days or whatever. And how can we have that kind of connection? By turning off whatever, backing away from our screens, ignoring our calendars, and taking our eyes off of all the things, and then waiting for him to speak. So, love and intimacy with God grows when we sit in silence or stillness with him. We have to just chill for a minute. And in a different way, the ultimate experience you can have in your prayer life with God is to be still enough to actually be aware of his presence and let him direct your thoughts. And when you do, you will be undone with love and you will lose your appetite for all the things. The work of God, the work God most wants us to see is the one that he's doing in our hearts. And we're up to habit 4 of the 6 habits of living by faith. And I'll go over 1 through 3 before I get on to 4. Remember to wrestle with God when he seems silent. Remember to look to see where God is at work. Remember to embed questions for God with truth. And number 4, remember to watch for God's answers. And she put in a um, quote from C.S. Lewis, who was expressing his frustration with the part of prayer that requires silence. And I thought it was quite interesting. So he said, I still think the prayer without words is the best, if one can really achieve it. But I now see that in trying to make it my daily bread, I was counting on a greater mental and spiritual strength than I really have. To pray successfully without words, one needs to be at the top of one's form. So I thought that was interesting. And, she always gives like prayer activities at the end of every uh, chapter. So I'll read that, and then I think that's all that I have. Yeah. So, uh, where's it at? um, Often when I attempt listening prayer, my to-do list controls my thoughts, so I take them captive. And she says she does it by sketching and doodling. She says, though I'm not very good at it, I treasure those drawings, and having my busy hands helps me gather my thoughts and tell them, hey, get up in here and watch in this watch post with me. And after I'm finished sketching, I am often to be able to be still without the need of a prop. This week, I'd like you to draw whatever thoughts God directs you to in the stillness. If you don't know where to begin, just pick a Bible verse and start to sketch it out. So that's all I have for today.
Alrighty then.
My
I thought it
Bible
was good.
needs to
Hmm?
get more and more. I need to just like get like colored pens instead of a black pen. But
Right. So, other than that, that's all for today, right?
yep,
Okay. So, the other thing I want people to do, like I said before, is if you have missed these studies, don't worry, they'll be posted. Um, but follow along, see what you find as well. But pray before you do it. That way your brain doesn't get all scrambled. It's helped me a little bit, and I'm pretty sure it helped some other people as well. That's really all I have. So until next time, God bless you all, and we hope to see you in the next video.